Some games have expansions, but some games don't need them. These are their stories. Oh, and welcome to Tabletop Shop.
Hello and welcome back to Tabletop Shop Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Nate Clark, and seated across the city from me is your other co-host, Cody Pennington.
Go for it.
Cody, how you doing?
It's just such a long, awkward pause you keep throwing in there, man.
Well,
I don't know what to do with
a pause that you're supposed to fill in immediately, as any co-host would do.
You are to announce my presence.
Just a dysfunctional podcast all around. But
Excellent.
Cody, how are you doing?
Welcome, everybody.
Tell me how you're doing.
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm going to work from home tomorrow, so that's nice, and then off on a vacay.
Vacay. You play some board games on that vacation?
Yeah, funny you should ask that. I am.
You better. What are you planning to play?
Actually, you know what? Let me look at my little list. I was just working with Kirsten earlier to figure out what games you want to bring.
So it's what, 3 nights? 4 nights? 3 nights?
It's three nights.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm assuming you're playing an average of 7.5
half of these.
7.5 games a day.
Yeah. So I'm bringing 50 games with me is the idea, so that we can have a lot of options.
50 different games. Yeah, you can't play the same one twice. Yeah.
No, definitely not. What am I looking at? We're going to bring with us Brass, Ares Expedition, Quacks of Quedlinburg, Seven Wonders Duel, Castles, Paladins, Dinosaur Island, Honeybuzz, Legends of Andor, Rivals of Catan, and Viticulture. Probably won't play all of them.
Just a hair short of 50. We'll see.
Yeah, actually, what is that? That's 10. No, that's 11. Oh man, we need to narrow that down.
It's a lot of weight.
My duffel bag we bring games in. Yeah, it doesn't have quite that much room. But yeah, well, that's me. How about you? You're going on a trip soon too, aren't you?
Yeah. I am. I'm going to Europa pretty soon. I'm going to Germany.
Europa.
Yeah.
No, I thought like this weekend. That's what I meant.
And before I go to Germany, I am going to a little camp for the weekend.
All right. Hey. Now let me take a moment to tell you what I'm doing a month from now.
Right. I will also be bringing some games probably. I might bring Dune. I could definitely see myself bringing Kemet and maybe Tapestry. Castles, maybe. Yeah.
So there's going to be some sophisticated board gamers wherever you're going?
Well, not necessarily. My dad and Reagan will be there, and they know how to play all those, so that, it's enough to get the ball rolling.
Really, then.
No, not really.
Just kidding.
No, it used to be like everyone played Catan there and maybe some Dominion, and that was about it. So,
and then you guys realized that other games than those two existed in the world?
I realized that. I woke up, Cody.
Yeah. Hey, good on you and taking the red pill, man.
All right. Well, this is a very long intro. Just to tell you guys that you're listening to a podcast about board games, which I feel like we did in a very roundabout way there. There was kind of a common thread between all of our conversation.
Yeah, if that wasn't obvious at this point, then...
No. Well, let's go right into what you played this week, Cody.
Okay. Hey, I did pretty good this week, man.
All right.
I think the last 2 weeks... consecutively, I've only had 3 games that I played, but this time I have 5.
All right. Okay.
Rocking it. We're going to hit it off first with Seven Wonders Duel, which I actually played with you, so you can get into that. And I think you won by a certain amount, which is unfortunate.
A handful
because I feel like I'm
points,
pretty good at that game.
I believe.
A handful. So how many points can you fit in a hand? Like 3?
We can both fit quite a bit in our hand. We have pretty big hands. So
okay.
I was going to say more than you, but
the victory chips you're using.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Then I got some Wingspan in there, of course. It's actually been a while since I started playing that regularly, and I'm trying to do that again a little bit. And I gotta say, I think I just enjoy the base game without really any of the expansions. Maybe it's just because I'm in like training mode, sorta, and the way you get high scores is some specific good cards in Wingspan, and so I just get kind of like all the cards they add in like the European expansion aren't too crazy awesome to me.
It sounds like you might be sucking the fun out of it, Cody.
but I enjoy it. So am I?
Well, I can't argue with
I don't know.
that.
Maybe I'll just need to play another game and enjoy the new cards.
Sure.
But yeah, Wingspan. And then I got to play for the first time Star Wars Rebellion.
Oh,
baby.
no way. How was
Yeah.
it?
Have you played that?
No, dude. Never even seen it.
Well, what's
Never
the
touched
big
it.
Star Wars game you just played recently?
Imperial Assault.
Ah, okay. That's the app-driven one, isn't it?
Well, no, it doesn't have to be. It can't. There's an option to be app driven.
Okay. That's like the Star Wars version of Mansions of Madness and Journeys of Middle-earth, right? I thought. Maybe
I mean,
I'm-
yeah, it's
maybe I'm very
similar.
confused.
It's not as similar as those two games are to each other, but it is similar.
Okay. So that's where I got that. But yeah, I played it, man. I think it's obviously one side versus one side, but we played 4 players, so you can play a team game, which really is just kind of splitting up the roles of one side into 2 halves for each person. So it's I'd say it's sort of a loose team game because you're still just working with your friend pretty closely. But it was pretty interesting. You know that I'm not the hugest fan of area control games or war games, really.
Yeah.
But it wasn't bad, I'll say that. The miniatures are impressive.
I actually didn't know there were minis.
There's a lot
in
of
that.
minis.
A lot of ships, I guess.
Oh, dude, that's like, I feel like that's the thing for Star Wars Rebellion. There's 2 Death Stars and a Death Star in construction. You've got
Really?
some Super Star Destroyers. For the Rebels, you have like the Mon Calamari cruisers, and then you have AT-ATs, AT-STs, like little troopers and X-Wings. It's crazy, man.
Dang. Okay, I was not really aware of that aspect.
When you set up the board and you get all those guys like arranged, it looks dope.
I bet it does. So who won?
Yeah.
And who were you playing as?
We played as the Empire and we won.
Awesome.
Actually, here's the funny thing. So the Empire, there's like these random sector cards that you start with troops on that you control. Just picture a board. Actually, wait. Have you played Battlestar 2? Like the original Battlestar 2?
I don't even know. Is that a video game?
What am I saying? Battlestar. No. Sorry. Battlefront 2. What am I saying?
It's like, what is
What a
that?
joke I am.
Yeah, I have.
And like the Galactic Conquest mode in the campaign, where the galaxy is like set out as just a bunch of planets.
Yeah.
The board looks a lot like that actually. So you have all the Star Wars planets, and
See,
then
the thing is, I've seen the board and I can picture the game in my head. I just wasn't picturing a lot of minis in it for some reason.
maybe you just saw the board in a broken,
I don't
unset
know.
up state. I
don't
guess.
know.
But the funny thing about our game was the Empire had our random starting spots, and then the Rebels get to choose where their Rebel base is. And the whole intent of the game is the Rebels have to survive a certain number of rounds without losing their base or having the base discovered, and then the Empire is trying to find and destroy the Rebel base before the time runs out.
Sounds like a certain other game we might or might not be talking about today.
Ooh.
Spoilers.
Which one are you talking about?
I guess you'll find out what the rest of them.
I don't know. But the joke of all this, it took us literally until like the second to last round, and we just barely eked out the battle win in the very final round that we had.
Mm-hmm.
But the Rebels chose to hide their base on Hoth. It's like
That's hilarious.
just so true to the
actually.
movie. It was kind of sad but cool. At
That's
the same
hilarious.
time.
Okay, so all good things for Rebellion then.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Faux show. Then I played Fallout Shelter. I really don't pull that out as much as I should because of the box. I don't like having all my nice cardboard box frames up on the shelf for all the games, and then you have this tin box.
It makes you
like, doesn't look nice.
It makes you feel like the game is of lesser quality, doesn't it?
Yes, which it's not. It's a good, solid little game. But I pulled it out, I played it, and it was good.
Solo or
So yeah.
2-player?
No, it was with Kirsten.
Okay, yeah. It's an okay game. I thought it was fine. Better than I thought it was going to be, also based off the box. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was actually originally disappointed with the game because Tom Vassell spoke very highly of it, and so I interpreted that as it would be a bit more complicated of a game, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
But that's all right. My expectations have shifted, and I accept it for what it is.
And you haven't gotten rid of it either, so.
No, I almost have multiple times, but it's survived each of those cleaning onslaughts.
Is that...
So yeah, and then
yeah, go ahead.
I was just say finally played Royals. That's my game
Oh,
number
really?
5.
2-player also?
Yeah, It's been a long time since I pulled that out.
I feel like it
was probably with you, actually.
We've played a 2-player and a 3-player game of that.
Yeah,
I feel like I much preferred 3-player. How was it going back to 2?
It's fine. I've probably played it 2-player the most often, but I agree 3-player is more interesting because there's more competition going on for all the different regions.
Yeah, I think 4 would be amazing, but
we need to find another person, man.
we need to find another person. Wow, how many people are
go
in
on
this
the street.
city that we live in? 100,000?
At least 10.
All right. Well,
actually, yeah,
enough about your stupid games, whether I bought some of them for you or not.
That's right. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Okay, so I obviously
what'd you
also
play?
played Seven Wonders Duel and obviously also won. That's another game that I kind of like. I'm not too excited to play until it's on the table and we're, like 20 minutes into it, or in this case, I don't know, like 10 minutes into it, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, this is a good game,
Well, let me stop you there. I got a question for you. Which do you prefer, Hadara or Seven Wonders Duel?
Well, I feel like I feel like I can't really. I don't know. I feel like that's a kind of an arbitrary comparison.
I don't know. They feel pretty similar to me. A lot of similar themes and mechanics.
I don't know. I feel like I feel like it's more similar to the base Seven Wonders. Between the two of them, I think Seven Wonders Duel has a better core design. I think it's more interesting, but Hadara scales, and Seven Wonders is 2-player only, so that's a downside for me, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
Because also I feel like Hadara is a great introductory game into drafting, and it's interesting. So, you can have a few people over that aren't really into board games and bust Hadara out. I also played Hadara this week, so good segue.
Hey,
Yeah.
very nice.
Played
You're
with 3
welcome.
people, finally beat Reagan. Reagan has won that game every single time he's played it. So
Really?
yeah, I didn't have a great
How
score.
much did you beat him by?
20 points at least. But I was
Oh,
still
that's still pretty good.
I was still at least 30 below his high score. So,
Okay.
he was sick too.
So it's not so much that he did poorly. You just did really poorly.
And he did even
Wait,
more
no.
poorly.
I know. I switched that.
So,
Yep.
yeah, Hadara, good game. Also played Dune Imperium again. Amazing game.
Very
This
nice.
was actually the most intense. So I have the Rise of X expansion, and I believe the game was about 2.5 hours. 2-player game,
Oh.
2.5 hours. It was insane.
Whoa.
Yeah, great game though.
Wow. Did you win?
I did not. I came up short a couple points. Yeah.
Who won? Who are you playing with?
My friend John.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Respect to you, Johnny.
Yeah. I think I think he's already beat me once before. But so he's catching up to me a little bit. I got more wins on him than that game, but I also play it more.
Okay.
And then,
Excellent.
what was the other game? I should have written this. Champions of Midgard. Also played that again. Both expansions.
Yeah.
Great experience. Love the game.
And again, I can hold on to that for you after you move.
After I move, that's coming with me. I mean,
Dang it.
I might leave it with you while I'm in Germany, but we don't need to come back to Germany
Really?
again. So,
Okay. All right. Hey, also, I gave you Elysium. You need to trade me back a game at some point.
oh, yeah. Let's see here. I got a deck of cards.
How many of them?
48. Okay.
No, decks of cards, not individual cards.
No, I just have 48 cards.
Is that all you played?
Yeah,
It's
4
pathetic.
games. Get off my back.
Okay, that's pretty good, man.
Okay, this segment's falling apart. Let's move
Enough
on
of
to
this.
our game of the week. Cody, you seem to have forgotten what our game of the week is, so can you remember?
I forgot what our game of the week is. Oh, I had Brass Birmingham written down from last week. What have I
You
done?
fool.
Here we go. Let me copy that over. Hey, Nate, did you know that our game of the week is Stronghold 2nd Edition?
That's when you were talking about Rebellion earlier. I was like, that sounds like a game we're going to talk about. And you were like, huh?
Well, so I keep I keep a separate document that basically mirrors our podcast schedule, but I fill in, like when we're doing a board banter top 3, I fill in my answers so I can look at them, but they're secret, so you can't see them. And I forgot to carry over the game of the week. So I couldn't see anything that correlated with what you were talking about, and I was very confused.
So what you're telling me is that you are very prepared to, again, talk about Brass Birmingham, but you probably don't even remember what Stronghold 2nd Edition is.
I know what are you talking about, man? I've beaten you 50% of the time at that game.
Yeah, you do have half the wins. Well done.
Very true.
But the Defender has all the wins. So far, actually. Every single time I played that game, the Defender's won.
Really?
So...
Still haven't won as the attacker.
And I think it's supposed to be like, apparently in the original version, the Defender was like overpowered, and apparently they like balanced it out, and still the Invader has not
supposedly won. Well, maybe we should enlighten our fans, our loyal fans, with what this game is all about.
Yeah, so similar to what you were saying earlier about Rebellion, you have two sides. It's a siege on a castle, and one person is trying to break into the castle, the other person is defending it. And the Defender has to survive 7 rounds, basically, 7 onslaughts. But it's an interesting dynamic because, well, and then the Invader has to just break through one wall segment and they win. But obviously it's harder than it sounds because the Invader has not won in any of the games I've played. But it's an interesting dynamic because the Defender starts out super powerful and the Invader starts out super weak. And that they start to shift, right? The Invader grows in power while the Defender weakens over the course of the game. So, it's very interesting. It's a great dynamic. There's a lot of troop movement. It's a lot of the Invader trying to trick the Defender into, oh, you think I'm going to do this, but I'm actually setting up to do this. And on the Defender's part, obviously, it's a lot of trying to guess, basically, what the Invader's trying to do. And are they tricking me here, or are they tricking me there, or what am I missing, So, yeah. And it has this other interesting thing, I guess you could say, where the Invader takes an action, and depending on how strong of an action it is, it uses time thematically, and then the Defender gets to spend time right afterwards to do something. And it goes back and forth like that in every round.
Brilliant mechanism.
Yeah.
I love that.
It is. It's amazing. I love it too.
Because it's not really even like a certain number of turns. It's the attacker does whatever they want to do, and at certain stages the Defender gets to respond. So each round can even have a different number of turns that actually happen.
Yeah, the Invader could take 2 actions, or he could take 8.
Yeah. Which I love the versatility in that strategy, because maybe you get really set up as the attacker over a couple of rounds, and then you want to just do this blitz assault, and so you skip everything else in the middle and only give the Defender like 2 time tokens to work with, and then you just attack and you slaughter.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great, and especially as the Invader, you're like, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do this, but everything I do is gonna be helping the other, or giving the other person an opportunity to defend better, essentially. And I like that you can spend, basically you have to spend troops to do actions. And usually you can spend like 1 strong troop or 2 weak troops. And the Defender gets time based on the number of troops you use. So if you're spending 1 strong unit, he only gets 1 time. But if you spend 2 weak units, he gets 2 time, turn, what do you call those? Hourglass.
Hourglass.
Yeah. So then that's also a decision you have to make is, do I want to use my good troops and kind of waste them, but then he gets less time, or do I want to use my weaker troops and get rid of them, but then he gets more time, There's so many pros and cons to every decision. I love it.
I love how much it kind of makes it feel like an RTS in some ways. You can't really get a real-time element in board games that are turn-based because they're literally turn-based, but this is a turn-based game that feels sort of like a real-time game. Since however much the attacker does, the Defender gets that same amount of resources to spend. It's just, I love it.
And it's very immediate, too. It's not like the Invader has a 10-minute turn or a 15-minute turn, and then the Defender gets a 10 or 15-minute turn. It's like, boom, 30 seconds, boom, 30 seconds, boom, 30 seconds, boom, 30 seconds.
Although towards the end of the game, some of those turns can take a long time because you're sitting there thinking for like 20 to 30 minutes.
Right. There can be a lot of contemplating for sure. But the good thing is, okay, you have to have two people who are both thinkers in this game because, well, obviously because one person will just get blown out if you don't. But it's also a game where it's like, okay, that person's going to spend a lot of time thinking on their turn. You better be thinking about what you want to do on your turn. And part of it is reactionary to what they do. But also you need to be assessing, okay, if they do this, I want to do this. If they do that, I want to do that. Right? You got to be thinking the entire game. And that's why it's such a brain burner.
Yeah.
Because you can't just be thinking on your turn. You are constantly just like stressing out and trying to figure out how to outwit the other person.
Now, let me ask you this. Of all the games you've played, what is the shortest time that you've spent on one of these games?
Well, okay. I taught Reagan how to play once, but I don't really count that game. It was about 20 minutes. And I actually did win as the invader in that game. But I think he was not really in the mood to play that game at that time. So I kind of don't count that win.
That sounds good.
Other than that, I don't think I've had one on much under 3 hours, if under 3 hours at all.
Really? Wow. Okay. I feel like both of our games were probably closer to 4.
But they were definitely no less than 3, probably 3.5, yeah.
Yeah. Man, it's such a good game. What boggles my own mind is that, again, I don't really like war games very much. But this game, for me, it's like 14 or 15, I think, in my top 100.
Yeah. It's pretty high for me, too. And it's weird because I've only played it a few times. And it's just, you have to have so much respect for the design. I really feel like you do.
Yeah.
Even if you played this game and you didn't enjoy the experience, you would still have to walk away saying, wow, that is actually a very good design. I may not want to play it again because I don't like long games or I don't like really intense games, but you are going to walk away with the impression that this is it's a very well-designed game. And maybe the defender's still a little overpowered. I don't know. Maybe people that I play with are just bad at the game, and I also. No offense. But it definitely feels overall pretty airtight.
It's a very compelling game, I would say.
In what way?
You walk away from playing this just being like, wow, what did I just play? Why do I like this game so much? It's incredible.
And you're like, I really want to play it again, but maybe in a couple weeks.
Let's wait a month and get this set up.
Not so long that I forget how everything works because there are a cajillion little tiny rules in this game.
Yes, which is also annoying.
It is. You are just swimming in the rule book during this game. Usually you have a lot of time to do that while the other person's mulling over their billion options. You're like, well, I'm going to go reread sections of the rule book that aren't quite clear,
I've probably spent, I'd say, I've only played 2 games of this, but I would venture that a quarter of both of those games I spent just reading through the rule book. Like on your turn, you're thinking of stuff, and I'm trying to analyze all these different rules and remember what I can do with different things. Yeah.
So, is there... what do you not like about it? Or is there anything that you would say you don't like? And
that's a good question.
If it's hard for you to think of something, then why is it so low on your list? Is my follow-up question to the answer you haven't given
what?
yet.
I would say 14 or 15 is dang high, man.
Oh, no. and I agree. But why is it not higher? Is it just because other games are better?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a lot of other games that are better. And games that have mechanisms that I love more deeply, probably, that take precedence.
Well, I feel like actually
so
this I mean, you have the mechanism of your actions going back and forth and, the strength of those actions affecting each other. There's not a lot of other mechanisms in this game, actually. There's some there's movement rules and there's rules for every structure you build and troop you put on the board, but there's actually not a lot of game mechanisms in this.
I guess I group that more into perhaps theme and function of the game. So it's a war game. There's combat rounds, numbers versus numbers.
Yeah.
Whereas generally my favorite type of game is going to be some sort of engine builder,
soulless Euro,
resource-driven type game. Well, not soulless, please.
Yeah,
it's beautiful when the theme meets the mechanism.
Yeah, I feel like you and I are both much more inclined to maybe not heavily, but very thematic Euros are both like what we're like, yes, give me more of that. Brass, for example.
Yeah, I'll second that. Terraforming Mars. Trying to think of ones that are big that we both like a lot that are in common.
I would say Underwater Cities, for sure. Also,
Yeah, for sure.
so, but
Castles.
they are hard to come by because a lot of times, I don't know, there's kind of just this stereotype that your Euro designer kind of doesn't care about theme too much, and he just cares about creating an airtight, complex, well-oiled machine without putting the polish on it. And that's not always true, and I think it's becoming less common. If you look back at all the old kind of classic Euros, it's like, wow, these are really kind of just devoid of life, you know? But I feel like in the current...
I think there's just more people making games nowadays.
Well, and the thing is you have to compete with
better.
the production quality of other games, you know? And so you can't be putting out ugly games regardless of how good they are, unless you're targeting like heavy war gamers, because they still play ugly, terrible game. Not terrible. If you like that, you like that.
Now let
and
me
that's
jump
okay.
on that.
But, you know, I generally actual war games do not have a lot of polish.
Yes, and that's actually what I'm going to tie back to. One thing I sort of dislike about Stronghold is the attackers. You're these cubes, and not just cubes. They're like the tiniest wooden cubes you ever done see in a board game. They're like, I don't know, 3-4 millimeter
Yeah.
cubes, maybe.
The thing
Like
is,
they're even smaller than the side cubes.
so obviously the reason they did that is because the attacker draws cubes out of a bag randomly at the beginning of each round.
Sure.
And there's 3 different colors. I feel like, though, they still could have designed little figurines like the Defender has. And they would be so hard to distinguish anyways if you're filling them with your fingers that it wouldn't have mattered. I feel like they kind of just wanted to go the easy route, do the cubes, because it makes more sense anyways as far as drawing out of a bag blindly. So,
yeah, or just keep the bag with the cubes, or even replace it with little tokens that have a picture, whatever the unit is you're pulling out, and then pull your units from the side that are actually miniatures and use those instead.
maybe...
So you're just using the bag as an indicator.
Maybe. That's. I feel like that's a little clunky, though.
Could be, but it would look awesome.
It would look better. I honestly, like I said, I feel like the figures could be indistinguishable enough that you could just toss them all in the bag. And it's just up to the integrity of the person you're playing with.
Yeah, and all that being said, I will say that the Defender pieces do look pretty great. Like they actually made those miniatures, which I believe was an upgrade from the first edition, right?
I honestly haven't looked into the first edition much. I don't know. I think in general it's just kind of
looked
off
up pictures.
the market.
Sure. I think I've looked at pictures though, and I believe all the Defenders were cubes. So I think that is an upgrade for the second edition, which is a good one.
So do you know who designed this game without looking it up?
Oh, no. When you say it, I'll remember.
I'm not 100% sure if I'm saying it right, but I've heard it pronounced Ignacy Trevicek. Now, do you know of any other games? You do know, but do you know games that were also designed by him?
Oh, I couldn't think of any.
You own 2.
You liar.
No.
You're probably not lying.
Are you ready?
Let me go to the old geek.
No,
okay,
no,
yeah.
I got you.
Save me some time.
So, one of them that you're going to be like, all right, that makes sense, which is Robinson Crusoe.
Oh.
And I feel like, I haven't played the game, but from what you've told me, from what I've heard, that is also a brain burner. And so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I've only played that once.
The other one...
But I do own it.
The other one, way on the other end of the scale, Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North, and the original Imperial Settlers.
Wait, what?
But yeah, Empires of the North is the one you own, and that is also designed by him. So he's all over the place.
Did he have any co-op designers?
Did he have any? Oh,
like did
design?
Did anyone else contribute to that game?
Oh, to Imperial Settlers? I don't think so, but I can double check. I'm pretty sure it's just his name on the... Oh, no, there is one other person. Joanna Kijanka. I have never heard of her.
She is the influence.
Well, she's also in Robinson Crusoe, though. So I don't...
Okay.
I have not heard of her. I don't know what her interaction is necessarily in the design process, but I know that at least on Imperial Settlers and maybe also on Robinson Crusoe, it's just Trevicek's name, I think. So...
Okay.
Yeah.
She must be the forefront designer boy.
So I think that's interesting. He's got a few other interesting games in his repertoire. 51st State is one that we're both relatively familiar with.
I want to play that one.
Yeah.
Isn't 51st State, isn't that either a re-implement or re-implemented by the original Imperial settlers?
Yeah, I think it is something like that. I don't know exactly. Just a second. I think BGG tells you this. Yes, so it is.
Yeah,
it does take the core mechanic from Imperial Settlers. Or actually, I think 51st State is older. So Imperial Settlers takes its core mechanic from that.
Okay.
I don't know what that is necessarily. I've only played Empires of the North, which I think is actually quite similar to the original Imperial Settlers, but I don't know too much about it.
Yeah, I want to say the core mechanic that they duplicate for basically all those games is having cards that represent either a person or a place that you can acquire, and then there's different things you can do with it. You can like choose to conquer it and then get a certain bonus from it, or sort of convert it and then get like an ongoing ability. That's my rough understanding of what kind of ties them all together. Which Empires of the North does kind of do-ish. You can either raid and pillage. I forget if those are two different or the same.
Raid and pillage definitely sound the same,
island.
but I know you can.
They do sound very similar, but I can't think of the other word.
Yeah. Colonize, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Settle. Anyways, so.
But anyway, we're getting off track.
Yeah,
back to Stronghold, man.
Yeah, a little bit. I feel like for me, I also love the game quite a bit. Like I said, nothing but respect for the design. It is a brain burner. It's something that doesn't rank super high. It's still decently high on my list of games, but not super high just because it's not very accessible. It's kind of a pain to pull out. You just do it every once in a while, and it's kind of an event when you do. But games like that, I feel like don't reach super high on my list, even if they are really good designs, because I don't know. It's easier for them to slip. When you don't play games often, it's easier for it to slip, I guess, right? On a list.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that, because I feel kind of the same way about it, and yet I have it so high. I think it's like if you go and see a really, really good movie that's really, really long in theaters, it like sticks with you, right? Like you remember it. It's going up there in your head with one of your top movies, but you don't really want to necessarily watch it on a regular basis, if even once a year.
I don't know. I feel like movies are almost a different thing, at least for me, because I don't know. A movie is a passive experience, even if it's an intense movie, whereas a game is something that you're really involved in. It's something that you actually do. And so something that you actually do as a hobby, you want to come back to again and again. Whereas a movie, there might be a movie that you only watch once a year or once every couple of years, and it can still be an amazing movie to you. But it's not something that you come back and that you engage in necessarily in the same way that you do as a game. So like, for me, like The Godfather, for example, I've only ever seen that movie once, and I think it was about 5 years ago. My favorite movie of all time, second to Lord of the Rings, if you can put a trilogy in that list. But yeah, like I said, I saw it maybe 5 years ago, and I've only seen it once, but it left such an impression that it's like, yeah, that is just, like, I want to watch it again at some point, hopefully soon. But like that, it cemented itself because it was so good,
Yeah, well, that's my point. Like, you don't want to wear it out, or maybe it's just heavy enough to where you don't want to essentially watch it so often, as opposed to other movies you've seen, like, oh yeah, I could watch that twice a month. But you wouldn't necessarily rank like as high.
I don't know if
I guess that's where I'm going with it.
Okay, well, yeah, I was just saying that the correlation breaks down where the game can slip on a list because of that, and I feel like a movie kind of doesn't.
I feel like what you're describing is the point that I'm making.
Well, then,
but maybe
good point,
not.
Cody.
Okay, good point, man. Well, you have any other dank thoughts you want to throw in there about Stronghold?
No, I think just for people listening, I feel like I would give this the same recommendation that I gave Brass, which is that don't just go out and buy it. Preferably find somebody who knows how to play and is hopefully willing to teach you. You might have an even harder time because this game is less pervasive and people will be less likely to want to teach it to you, I think. So,
is it even available anymore?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure
Can
it
you
is.
Still buy this?
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Think so? Okay.
I mean, I only bought it, a year and a half ago, So
I guess that's true. But man, what a game.
What a game.
Actually, I'm curious. I'm going to look it up. What do you think it is on the Geek?
It's not top 100, but I think it's top 2. Definitely top 3.
Lower.
Lower than the top 3? I don't know. Definitely top 1,000 then.
1283.
Dang,
is what
really?
It is.
I wonder if it's
I think
just
it's
because it's so inaccessible.
Kind of obscure. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's put out
which is sad.
It's put out by Stronghold Games, which is obviously a well-known company, and Portal Games, also well-known designer too. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. It's just, I think it's maybe just not as accessible as other games are. Harder to get into. I think that's
another thing that makes me appreciate it so much. Is it's not like a top 100 game or even top 500 game. It seems like it's either a little less well known, or maybe it is well known, but just not many people have really played it. And so it makes me happy.
You feel like you're part of an elite group.
Yes.
Cool.
The elite within the elite.
All right.
The best board gamers from around the world.
Well, that is Stronghold, designed by Ignacy Trivicek. And you get 2 thumbs up from both Cody and I.
2.5.
Okay. Why don't you introduce our board banter for the episode, Cody?
You know what? I got this, man. Top 3 standalone games.
And then you're going to have to define that term probably for the audience.
All right, let's talk about this. Yes, this was an idea I had recently-ish, but our top 3 favorite games that expansions do not exist for them. Upgrades are fine, but either they don't have an expansion upcoming, or there just is no expansion already in existence for them.
So this is only a top 3. Is there going to be any crossover?
Oh, okay. Here's the thing. I'm sure there will be, because I went through my entire list of games that I've ever played, and I had a tough time finding games that either were
I did too.
Good enough to make the list, or just didn't have expansions. I was surprised at how many I thought didn't have expansions, and then I went to look them up in Board Game Geek just to make sure, and they had expansions that I had never heard of before.
I'm pretty sure I got all the way to 20 on my list before I found a game that didn't have expansions yet. So like my top 19 or whatever in my list all have expansions.
I'm excited for this because I think it's going to be an interesting conversation because of that. But what I did is I have top 3, and then I actually went down to top 5 just in case there was too much crossover. And then I had some honorable mentions that
okay.
I'll just explain when we get there.
I'm getting conflicting messages here because you said it was a difficult list to put together, but you're like, but also I did a top 5 instead of a top 3, and I have honorable mentions.
Well, here's the deal. The honorable mentions don't really qualify for the list, and I'll explain why when we get there. And then number 4 and 5 was kind of starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel. I just wanted to make sure I had a few extras, since I figured the list would probably be just as hard for you to get. But we'll see. Okay. We'll see what we got here.
Well, I'll go.
So let's start with.
I'll go ahead and start with my number 3 because it'll be a short one. Stronghold.
Okay. Oh, dude, I was gonna do Stronghold. Stronghold has an expansion.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
There is a fan-made Helm's Deep expansion, which does not actually...
that's not it.
Okay, well, there's also the Undead one, if that's what you're talking about, but that's a standalone game, I believe.
Not that. Stronghold 2nd edition, The Great Shaman, 2017.
Yeah, okay. Is it a real expansion, or is it like a promo card?
It's description. The Great Goblin Shaman joins the siege. The invader, instead of rejecting killed units, assigns them to selected shamanic magic effects. This way he gains new opportunities to influence the situation of the board. So it's sort of a like Valhalla expansion for champions that they added to Stronghold. Granted, it is a pretty small expansion, but it was enough to where I took it off the runnings.
Yeah, I didn't even look because I was almost 100% sure that it did not have. That's crazy. So the question is...
And it's only for the attacker, which is weird.
The question is... Why did they, like, if this game wasn't that popular, which it seems like it wasn't super popular, at least, it's weird that they have an expansion for it.
Maybe it was just kind of the love project of
it could be, for sure.
That guy.
Okay. Well, I guess my number 3 is invalid, and unlike Cody, I did not
disqualify.
I did not make my top 3 a top 5 with honorable mentions, so you're just gonna have to deal with that.
Pathetic. Do you know what's going to be really funny is if all your top 3 don't actually qualify, and I did the research.
I was just thinking that.
We'll find out. My number 3 is Acrotiri.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. That's very good.
No expansions for that. Limited to a 2-player game unless you have 2 copies, which they claim. But you and I have what are supposed to be different printings that still have the same color player pieces, making it impossible to do a 4-player game.
We don't have different printings, Cody. You've always said this.
I thought they were different.
No, they're not. Because the original printing does have 2 different colors. And our printings are identical in every way.
Suspicious.
No, not at all.
Anyway, Acrotiri. Ladies and gents, this is a fun, I would also dare say, obscure game.
Relatively,
only for 2 players. Unless you have 2 different editions of the game, which is an odd requirement, then you can play 4 players. And I mean, how to describe it? It's sort of a tile placement game.
It's pick up and deliver primarily,
but on a tile placement platform.
Yeah, there's also map building / tile placement, whatever.
Yeah. Objective fulfillment, contract. No, not contract fulfillment.
Yeah, I would almost say contract fulfillment. So
sort of.
For those of you who don't know, you're building the map, and each map piece you put out has a color attached to it. And there's all these islands that you can go to and collect resources, and you can build temples. The temples have to be built according to cards in your hand that tell you, like, okay, this temple has to be below 2 blue tiles, to the left of 1 green tile, and above 3 red tiles. And so once there's a spot on the map that fits that requirement, if you can get your ship out there and build on it, then you get the points for that, basically. And so you're trying to build as many temples as you can, basically, that way. And so the map gets bigger and bigger, and yeah.
But what's so annoying about that is you can only have 1 temple per island. So as the map gets bigger, you get more options, but then it gets filled up faster too, and then
and sometimes
can be pain, but joy.
You're like, oh, I'm going to build on that one, it's fine. And then they'll play a piece that connects an island they're built on to that island. They didn't even build on the island, they just connected it to one that's already been built on. It's like, well, it's all the same island now, and I can't build there.
Yeah. I'm very proud of this game because I sort of accidentally discovered it early on in my entry into the hobby world, and I bought it for you, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was a birthday present.
Yeah, something like that.
And then it went out of print for literally like 2 years. I searched for a long time for this game, and it finally came back into print maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 2, and that's when I nabbed it.
Yeah, you never know.
Anyway, that's my number.
You never know when a game's going to come back and get not necessarily reprinted. Yeah, I guess reprinted. Not a new edition, but you never know when it's going to come back into print and when it's just going to stay out for the rest of eternity. And so you're like, do I buy an overpriced used copy, or do I wait and see if it comes back? You know,
or when they reprint it like a month later, like Ares Expedition, and trash half of the components.
Yeah,
I'm still upset about that, even though I don't even own the bad copy.
Okay, my number 2, I feel like could be on your list. And that is Furnace.
Sorry, man. Furnace Interbellum is coming out the end of this year.
Actually, I don't count that, though, because it doesn't have an expansion yet. So it is still standalone until that expansion comes out.
In my mind, I don't consider it standalone anymore because it's in the expansion world. So I'll allow it since we had different interpretations of the system, but I didn't include it for my list.
But you would have to say, as of right now, it is a standalone game. It probably will not be in the future. And now the expansion could get canceled. Probably won't. But in the future, it probably will not be a standalone game. But as of right now, I mean, you can't get your hands on that. So it is, right?
To me, I feel like a standalone game is guaranteed that there aren't expansions coming out.
All right, well,
there's no schedule, there's no plan for it. I know that's hard to predict.
I feel like we're both right, so let's not have an argument about it.
Well, some of us are more right than others, but okay.
It's a classic Megamind
Furnace.
So yeah, Furnace is great. We talked about it at length on a different episode, but has a great card drafting mechanic where you put out discs that have different values, and you either get the card, and if you don't get it, you get compensated depending on what number you put there. And then you have a little engine where you line up all the cards you got and you run that engine from start to finish and you produce resources and turn them into money, and you do that for 4 rounds. And it might sound boring, but it's amazing. And it's such a well-oiled machine.
And if you want to hate your life, you can commit yourself to leaving all the cards you acquire in the same position that you acquired them in.
Yeah. Would not recommend that to anyone other than those who are just completely bored with playing the game and just need a challenge.
Now, that being said, the supposed standalone game that has an expansion coming out soon, Nate, I'm excited about the expansion.
Yeah, I have not heard about this at all, actually. So enlighten me.
Oh, really? Okay. Let me pull it up. Furnace Interbellum. It's set in the 20s and 30s, so it's a little bit later than the Industrial Revolution that's going on for the rest of the game. So they add even just looking at the visuals, some of the cards look a little bit cleaner and less grimy than the classic Furnace look is. So it's a little bit of a refreshing take on it. But then it adds these. It looks like player powers that aren't as aggressive or terrible as the ones that come in the original game. I don't know if you get them like dealt out at the beginning of the game or if they're acquired somehow. Like here, this guy says, once at the end of each production phase, you may spend iron to resolve a company of the player to your right. So you can like activate one of the factory cards to the person next to you. So it's not quite as game breaking, you know.
Hopefully not. We don't really know what a company is though either, so
I guess I thought it meant a factory card, but who knows, maybe that's another part of the expansion. But then some of the other cards that it adds have little mini like ongoing abilities.
Oh, okay. So more complex cards.
Yes. Yeah, something that you can activate or I think it was
So where is this available right now? Is this being kickstarted or what?
I don't know. I'm looking down the Geek and there's very little information on it. It's just Furnace Interbellum in parentheses 2022. And it seems like whenever a game has a year listed, it's really not available until the year after that year.
2022 though.
Yeah. So maybe it's been announced, maybe it's in production. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I am ecstatic, and I'm going to look into this more because I need to get my hands on this ASAP.
And let me read you this little line from the description. It says, Interbellum is designed for players who are already familiar with Furnace. The expansion is best played if all of its elements are added to the base game. It says you can get to know it piece by piece if you want to, but I like that. To me, that feels like they're not just these little fun but not very complimentary pieces that you can just clip on. It sounds like it's almost this reframing of the game that you can slap on over the game and then play and enjoy even more.
Interesting. I will save any judgment or praise until I get that in my hands.
Yeah, all right. Sounds good, man.
All right, well, that's my number 2, Furnace.
Okay. My number 2, I bet is maybe possibly on your list. I'm sure it's
Is it a few years old?
Black Angel. I don't know. How old is Black Angel?
Oh, we'll just get to my number 1 when we get to it, I guess.
It's all right. Black Angel, owned by you. I've only played twice, I think, at this point. Very unique little game where you play as a group of robots on a colonizing spaceship with the last of humanity flying towards a new Earth.
Don't necessarily emphasize the word little there because it's anything but.
Oh yes, this is a large game.
Takes up a lot of
table space.
I was going to say that. A huge amount of space.
If only you could figure out, Nate, how to appropriately put the little hyperspace link tokens in front of everything.
I only messed up once.
Twice. It was 2 games in a row.
Okay, well, maybe. But yeah,
it was only once, but it was
this
twice.
game literally will take up most of like your standard 6-seater dining room table, 2 on each side and 1 on the end. It's going to take up pretty much the whole table for a 2-player game.
Yeah. Don't even try to eat while playing this game.
Yeah, no, yeah, great game.
Yeah, I don't know. You want to tell us a little more about it since you own it and have played it more?
And because it's my number 1, yeah, I will do that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, this was the first thing I thought of actually when you mentioned this as a possibility because we've talked about it before. Like this game does not have an expansion, and if you wanted to expand it, I do not know how you would do it, honestly. You could add another tertiary thing in, but then you're just distracting. The game already has so much going on. But essentially, it's kind of dice placement is the core, but you can use other people's dice, so it's not like you're just stuck with what you roll. Also, you can flip your dice. You can modulate them in that way. So there's really not a whole lot of luck at all. There is some card drawing, but even that really doesn't factor in too much. But basically, the theme is you're a bunch of little AI robots or whatever on a spaceship, and you're trying to get to Earth, or Spez as it's called. And
great name.
You're trying to do that before the invaders blow up your ship, I guess. And so you are flying through space trying to do that. You're completing, well, not really. Yeah, you're kind of completing tasks on the ship, like defending yourself from the invaders, repairing the ship. But then kind of the big side thing that's going on is you zoom out, and there's this other section of the board that is the ship flying through space. And you can take your little AI guys, put them in little tiny ships, and they can go on little side missions in space. So you have one board that's like the inside of the ship, and then another board that moves. Actually, you take a piece off the front, put it in the back to simulate the ship moving through space. And you can put your little guys in ships and go around and visit planets and, kind of colonize, or not really colonize, but kind of make
occupy.
Well, it's all. I think the game describes it as like other alien races are helping you in a way. So you can do all.
Okay.
You can
So negotiate maybe.
Yeah. You can do these side missions, and it's competitive. It might sound cooperative. It's actually competitive. But you're all just kind of inhabiting the same space within the game's theme. But you're doing a bunch of different things. And then you have a player board also with tiles on it that you can swap out and buy new tiles and score points. So there's just a ton of stuff going on in this game.
Yeah, man.
And it's
good.
And it's better than Furnace, I guess.
How high is Black Angel on your list?
What would you guess?
I'm going to go 13.
I would love to tell you.
That's great. Let me play this soothing background music. Actually,
I'm not going to tell you, because I think in the future,
you're not going to tell me?
I think in the near future, we would like to do a kind of top X games or whatever. And so maybe we shouldn't just be like listing all of our games and where they are on our list constantly.
We have established that Black Angel is in Nate's top X of games.
You know it, right up there with Heir of Kingdoms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you talk to me about that
you're
game.
number one. Honestly.
Yeah. Do you want to try guessing?
I wouldn't know what, honestly.
Come on, man. Maybe you just forgot it existed.
I must have. I feel like it should be obvious, right? But I don't know.
My number one is Brass Birmingham, son.
Oh, dude, man, really?
No expansions out there. I've looked.
That's insane.
Isn't that insane?
Wow.
Number 2 game on the Geek, and no expansions in existence.
That rings true of, well, I don't think that's how you should say it. It's a good testimony to the game, right?
Would you like to make Brass your number 0, Nate?
Yeah. No, I guess I would have to. We'll have to oust Stronghold.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Black Angel. Why did I say Black Angel? I'm sorry. I just looked at number 2. You confused me by saying Stronghold. I just suggested Brass for number 0, and then you switched it out with your number 3.
No. I would put it above Black Angel, which then kicks Stronghold off the list.
Oh, I see. You're doing like all cause and effect here.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. Well, my number 1, Brass Birmingham.
And
if you guys are curious about it, listen to our previous episode.
Exactly what I was just going to say. Self-promoting.
It's kind of funny that Furnace and Brass and Stronghold, we've discussed 3 of these games within the 5 episodes that we've made so far. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, multiple times too.
What?
Not just like once.
Yeah.
Like multiple
times. It's just whack. Maybe it's some sort of sign that we need to play these games more often.
I'm down.
All right. Well, Brass Birmingham, for those unfamiliar and those unwilling to go and listen to our previous episode of this podcast, is a networking game set in the Industrial Revolution in England. You've got a network of various cities centered around Birmingham, although I guess Birmingham's technically more at the bottom of the board. The game's just based off of it.
Very, very
And
important.
you're laying down, canal tiles, and eventually after the game resets and you go into phase 2, then you're laying rail tiles and you're building industries that produce resources, and then if you can use the resources on those industries, you can flip that tile over and then score points at the end of the overall phase. It's just a wonderful, beautiful game. And if that doesn't tell you just how good it is, that it's rank 2 on Board Game Geek and no expansions exist, it needs no expansions. That's the thing. That's how beautiful it is.
Do you think they ever will?
I don't know, man. I don't think so. I don't know what you'd add to the game. I mean, like maybe player powers, but it doesn't need them. It'd probably be worse with them.
It probably would be. The problem with heavy games is that how do you add something? How do you expand the game without making it just even more complex, like needlessly?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. What I'd be fine with is if they tried re-implementing this as maybe a 2-player game or almost like a Brass Birmingham mini, if they're able to still capture the elegance of the game, but in a shorter version.
But
again, it doesn't need it.
No.
I'd just be curious to see if that exists.
As long as this doesn't turn into like a cash grab, right? And it doesn't seem like the kind of game that would. But if they gave it kind of the Seven Wonders dual treatment, where it's like a lot of things are similar, and the overall feel of the game, like kind of how the game works and what you're doing is similar, but it's also very different and still very good.
Yeah,
I could see that working. And maybe make it a little shorter.
I'll second that. But again, it doesn't need it. It's just, I'll buy it if it comes out and it looks good.
So that is our top 3, I guess, standalone games as of 2022.
You want to hear my 4 and 5 and honorable mentions?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll just go real quick. Number 4, I had Royals. That has no expansions.
Okay, yeah.
And then down to number 5 is Fallout Shelter. So that really shows how much I was reaching just to find good games that didn't have expansions.
Yeah, because Fallout Shelter is almost in the territory of like it wasn't good enough to merit an expansion. So
just go play Fallout the board game, I guess.
And then what about your honorable mentions? Why do they count and why do they not? Is it because they have expansions coming?
Okay. No, actually. The first one I have is Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah, okay, right.
Because it's like its own game, but if you look on Board Game Geek, all of the extra components that are included in the 20th anniversary edition are all first expansion, second expansion, all the way up to like 8th or 9th expansion. So I guess technically they're expansions, so I didn't want to disqualify myself and include Castles.
Yeah, they're like mini expansions or whatever. And they literally are, because you can get them for the base game in the same art style. And it's literally a few pieces shrink wrapped with a little paper insert as instructions. That's literally what they're like.
So in a way, the game, the 20th anniversary edition is standalone because there's nothing else to buy for it.
But
it
actually says on the back of the anniversary edition that it includes like 12 mini expansions or whatever. So I feel like that kind of...
Yeah. So that's why I DQ'd that one. The other one I did was Ares Expedition. Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. And again, there's nothing out there. I'm willing to bet there probably will be some expansions coming out, maybe, since Terraforming Mars itself has a lot of expansions.
They just announced not just, but recently-ish announced a dice game.
Oh. That's weird.
Yeah.
That's very weird. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Me neither.
But here's the thing. Race for the Galaxy, that was partially the inspiration for Ares Expedition. They made a dice game out of that, and I would dare say the dice game's better.
And I wonder if...
So, who knows?
I wonder how similar this is going to be to Roll for the Galaxy then.
Yeah, or is it just completely different? It's like Settlers of Catan, the dice game. I don't know. But the reason I didn't include it in the list is because it's terraforming Mars, but sort of re-implemented in a different way. So it just didn't seem like it quite.
It totally would have
fit.
counted. It's not. It doesn't have. It's a standalone game. It's connected in.
Yeah, I think so.
Like franchise, it's connected to terraforming Mars, but it's not like actually connected to it in any way, and it has no expansions. The question is, would it have made your top 3?
I'd make that my number 2.
Oh, okay. So definitely. Then I would say that it is your number 2.
I'm trying to decide if that was yeah, I'd make that my number 2.
All right.
But it's too late. It's too late. Too late to apologize.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, this
done this
episode
to
has
me.
gone on long enough.
far too long.
Way long
So
enough.
if you want more of these shenanigans, feel free to listen to our other episodes. You can also visit us on our website at tabletopshop.wixsite.com/website. If you have anything you want to mock us about, if you want to send us all the lyrics in Latin to apologize, you can do so via tabletopshop23@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook. Tabletop Shop 23 on Instagram and just simply Tabletop Shop on Facebook.
Like to keep it simple. Yeah.
And thank you guys for listening.
And remember, if your game needs an expansion, you probably shouldn't have made it. Hey folks, thanks for listening. This has been the Tabletop Shop Podcast. We release episodes every other Wednesday, which is 2.17 times a month for you nerds. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. In the meantime, keep on playing games.